American E-Liquid Manufacturing Standards Association.
Awesome. And you are a charter member?
Charter member. Well, not a. I am a consumer advocate for it, and I'm also on the board of directors of the organization.
Okay. And is regarding what you guys are working at, you're a trade group?
Yeah. So what it is we're. I gathered together a bunch of like-minded businesses that represented a cross-section of how juice is manufactured inside of the USA, from those that do large batching and processing all the way down to the one-person business that makes it bottle by bottle by bottle, and really got a cross-section of manufacturers and brought them together to say, okay, what are the core things that we believe in that not only help our business but also help protect the consumer? And it really started with coming up with our core belief statements that that we have a responsibility to verify the accuracy of the nicotine that goes into the e-liquid products, that we have a responsibility to manufacture them in a clean, safe, and sanitary environment, that we have an obligation to make sure that they're packaged and delivered in a safe and responsible manner, and that we have a responsibility to provide some transparency into all of this process about the things that people are ingesting. For this group of members, they came up with an agreement of this is how they want it to do business.
So this is primarily an effort to raise the level of quality control within the e-liquid industry.
Yeah, well, not only for some of them, it's not raising it because they're already there and doing that, but it's providing that level of transparency and actually putting it in writing so that they can be held up to that standard of this is how it's done. In some aspects of the standard, some of them go well beyond what the actual standard is. Some of them aren't quite there yet on other areas, and that's why they're working towards being that standard. If you go to our website today, you'll see that there are charter members, but when it comes to the certified members section, there's no member listed there yet, because they're still working to be fully compliant to the standards. Now, they've all set a goal of being fully compliant by January 15th, 2013. So it's there. So they're all aggressively moving forward to essentially lay into place all of these things. And we took it also a little step further than your typical trade organization, which is the true self-regulation portion of it, which it's not just agreeing to the standards, but also agreeing that it's not a self-certification, that another party has to come in and inspect them, either on a scheduled basis or an unscheduled or surprise inspection basis, so that it wasn't like some other trade organizations where they just sign a paper that says, yes, we do all of these things. They're actually allowing a third party to come into it and say, yes, we're doing it. And it's something that they all believe in, and it's quite a remarkable thing to see competitors in an industry come together and say, this is what we think is good for us as a business and good for the consumer at the same time.
Right, and I know there's been you guys. I guess you could say you went public, or you kind of introduced what you were doing to the public. It was just last week, correct?
Correct, on Monday.
Right.
Yes.
And there was some controversy following that. I know that you guys got a chance to talk about AEMSA on Vape Team Live, and I know there was some concerns from some people regarding the things like the monthly dues. And so, could you kind of talk to me about what the financial part of it works like? How?
Sure. So, our due structure is entirely determined by the membership themselves. So we have it laid out that in November of each year, the membership lays out their goals for the next year. Those goals are then estimated out of what the cost of achieving those goals are, and then that is basically backed into what we think the membership size is going to be for that given year. So including some growth of the organization, at which point we then derive on what the membership dues will be. It's presented to the general membership, and they vote on whether or not to keep it at that level, to increase it or decrease it on those items. So they really have full control over the cost. Now, the cost for the launch of the organization, we did that exact same process about what we wanted to achieve, what we thought the membership size was going to be within that year period, and it essentially came out to $5,100 a year per member. As we get more members, it's really up to the membership to really decide. I wanted to make sure when we laid the foundation of this organization that the members really had the power to decide where the organization was going, what was important to them, and also have the ability to react to an ever-changing landscape without having kind of this course set by a board of directors, and then the membership just kind of has to follow along. Right. So we took a lot of cares in building these checks and balances into the system. A lot of it comes from there are other board or industry trade organizations where the board has 51% of the vote. So the organization is really just the board deciding what everything is because they have the majority vote. In this, it's not that case. Each member has one vote and one vote only.
No vendor, no consumer advocate would have more control over the organization than any other.
Exactly. Okay. Exactly. So and we really took pains into place so that it can't be kind of taken over by a strong-willed individual or whatever, unless they can convince the membership that's their thing. So it's set up for a lot of talk and discussion and validation before moves and decisions are made.
You guys are a trade group rather than being something like a standards organization. It's Correct. A complete third party in and of itself. So you're regulating yourselves, you're not setting standards for the industry.
Yeah, and absolutely we have no interest in setting standards for the people who don't want to be members. So the concept behind the trade organization is we want businesses that are like-minded, that support the goals that we have, and are looking for taking the advantage of what it takes of bringing together a group and having a single voice. And this includes doing things like approaching the FDA and trying to see what the FDA is doing and seeing if we can influence how those items are going, and speaking on behalf of our members to be able to do it. And if you think of it from a business perspective, it makes a lot of sense. You spend a lot of time running your business. It becomes your primary thing. You want to be able to go to the FDA and attend the TIPSAC meetings and things like that. Most of the vendors aren't able to do that. But if I'm in an organization that I believe in the same set of goals, I have the ability of being represented essentially as a coalition, but in this case a trade organization, to say, here's our opinions, here's our voice, and be able to do that. And it makes sense for a lot of businesses.
Absolutely. One of the things, if you guys, what you would see with a standards organization, not a trade group, is a full transparency in regards to where the money is coming from and where it's ending up. So you guys are something you would see less with trade groups is that same level of transparency. But I think one of the things I'd like to ask you is you've talked about bringing in third-party people to look at facilities. You've talked about going and meeting with FDA, meeting with different groups. I assume we're also talking about working with legislators, their aides and lobbyists and things of those nature. What are those the sorts of things that these dues are going towards?
So we have we've applied for tax exemption status. So we're actually incorporated as a nonprofit in Ohio, but we don't have our tax exemption yet. That's a process that takes a good period of time to do. When that's done, the law requires that we disclose how the money is brought in and the general categories in which it is spent in, which will include money that's spent on lobbying, money that's spent on our annual meeting, and those type of items. So we've already kind of put in place the ability to disclose that. We just have to wait for our final tax status to be finished. But we truly intend it. Now we'll go down to the line item. We spent $37 on pencils. It's not realistic to open up the books in that level. But as far as the major reporting categories, especially, those are required by law. And we welcome being able to do that.
I know that you'd mentioned verifying nicotine levels, verifying quality, and that is all on your members themselves, their own funds to complete tests. Are we talking about batch testing, or are we talking about something along those lines?
Okay, so what we're talking about here is we're also, to put it into perspective, we're looking at it from a manufacturing perspective. So there are multiple things that you have to consider. And the first line of producing a safe product is making sure your source ingredients are to the level. Because if you don't know what your source ingredients are and what their true quality level is, the further and further you get down the manufacturing process, the harder and harder it becomes to identify where those things are. So our standards talk about setting a nicotine quality standard that's based on pharmaceutical grade nicotine. Okay? And when you look at that standard, it'll tell you very specifically the nicotine has to be 99% pure from the source if you're using what's called freebase nicotine. So it's got to be at least 99% pure nicotine. It can't have more than 10 parts per million of heavy metals. And so it literally goes into every line detail. And we work very closely with the chemist to make sure that that definition fell in line with pharmaceutical grade nicotine. So that top level, and there's quite a few supplies out of it. But what we were attempting to do, and I think successfully done it, is that essentially say our members are not willing to use that lower grade of nicotine. Not that there's necessarily inherently anything bad, but we believe that quality of that core ingredient needs to be a central concern. So we lay out the standards of these are the things your nicotine has to be and has to be able to do it. And then we don't want to tell a business how to do their business. It's up to the business to say, this is how I'm going to get to that. But they have to provide the evidence of the regular routine testing of every batch that comes in, so that if they choose to do it by GCMS, or if they choose to do it by, you can, everything on that, you can, I'm not a chemist, so to my understanding, there are a bunch of different laboratory tests that you can do to get those results to prove that your nicotine quality items is to that level. So we didn't want to say this is how you have to do it. We said this is what you need to meet, and then as a business you can look at your model and how you do things and say this is how I'm going to get to there. It's very similar to almost every other kind of open standard that you see out there, whether it's an ISO standard or those type of things. They don't tell you you have to do step A, then step B, then step C. They say these are the things that you have to be able to meet and prove.
You just have the end of it, C, and then you're fine.
Yeah. Now on the other base ingredients, we're very lucky. There are USP certified versions of that, PG and VG. So if you're getting USP certified, not USP grade, but actually USP certified, we know because of that certification process what the quality level is. So now we have these base ingredients where we know the quality level is, and as long as the proper steps are done throughout the manufacturing process, we know we have a clean, quality product at the end.
I mean, that's great to hear. I think that my opinion is, my personal opinion is, the e-liquid industry needs this sort of self-regulation. Now, you guys are forming a trade group. This is for yourself. One thing I did want to ask you about is the way that you view the industry. Is AEMSA a response to the way you view the industry, or is it rather something?
Yeah, it's not a response to how we view the industry. It's a response in how we want to do business going forward and what we think will allow this industry to have a unified voice for our members. It's not looking at the rest of the industry and saying, don't do it that way, you have to do it our way. We have no interest in that. But we do have an interest in the industry continuing. So that's why we publish the standards, so that everyone can read them. We encourage people that if you don't want to use our standards or become a member, that's fine. But say something about it. Because I think the more the knowledge that is out there and freely available about how this product is done, in the long run, I think it will be an easier job in positioning it so that the industry can continue.
So where do you see e-liquid in regards to what may or may not be coming from the federal government?
Well, the way I look at it is that we know both TVECA and SAFTA are engaged with the FDA.
Right.
They're actively talking with them. We know that TVECA only supports pre-filled cartomizers because that's what's best for their businesses that's within it. SAFTA, we don't really know what there was relatively recently launched. They really haven't been kind of forthcoming of what their position on things are. But our position is we want to see the e-liquid industry be open to bottled refillables, allowing the flavorings that we all love, to making the standards reasonable and obtainable. So hopefully pushing back against things that saying it only can be created in an FDA lab, because we don't believe that an FDA lab level is not necessary. It's a consumable product, so it can be manufactured in a safe manner outside of an FDA lab with some quality control. So our members want to represent that to the FDA is look, we're doing this. You can come and see it. You can see that it's successful, and that's a powerful message.
No, that's awesome. I guess one last thing I kind of wanted to ask you guys about is moving into the next year. So how do you feel about your organization growing? Are you guys actively seeking members to join?
Absolutely. We have an open membership. So to become a member, one, you have to agree with the principles of the organization. Two, you have to apply, and you go through an interview process where we talk about it. Then, if you choose to continue on wanting to be a member, you set you essentially are given a date that says, okay, you have X number of days based on the interview about where your business is and those type of things, to be able to say, I'm ready for inspection. Okay. So the typical is a 90-day window, but it can be extended to 180 days, but depending on the applicant's specific situation of it. And you have to be willing to commit to the financial commitment for the organization to run. Because we're actually doing inspections, and that's part of the membership cost and the membership dues. It's not an extra fee that's put on it and things along those lines. It's built into that membership cost. It is a financial commitment to be able to do it. And we realize not everybody is going to be able to afford it. So we built things like the Mentor Protege program for those companies that are willing to meet the standards, believe in the goals, but their business volume isn't quite to the point where they can sustain the dues, or their standards are close to where they would be in line with our membership, and are not quite financially there to be able to work with one of our mentors who have gone through this process. Every one of these guys that's a part of this membership started off as a one-man or one-person organization and grew their business. And today we have membership that the smallest one is still a one-person organization, and the largest is 15. But being able to get that mentorship of helping them get through the standards and get answers and get that advice of somebody that's gone through it before, to bring in those type of people. So we hope that we'll see in the next year a significant increase in membership.
How many members do you guys have right now?
Currently, right now, we have 10, 10 members that are general members, and 2 consumer advocates. One is Lou Ritter, and the other is myself. And then 1 subject matter expert, which is Kurt Kissler, who is a PhD in chemistry, and a long line of acronyms that go with his signature line, who's also pretty well known in the community for his expertise on these type of things.
To it. Is there anything else you'd like to say to our community?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that people understand out there, this is our standard for ourselves, not the standard. Right. And I think that's where some people potentially we didn't do a great job of making sure that everybody understood from day one. I think if you really read through our website, you'll see that it's very clear that this is our standard for ourselves and not a standard that we're trying to impose on other people. But we are raising a flag and saying, we're doing this. If you believe in it, please come join us, because there is power in numbers.